Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm going to talk about a big slate of changes that have slid down the pipeline from Blizzard on the 10.2 PTR. As we can see, posted 59 minutes ago, there are really two different types of changes. There's tier set bonus changes, which have happened for most of the tanks, and most of these have been pretty good. They've fixed some of the really bad ones, and I'll get into that in a second. But also there are some class changes, some surprising nerfs, and then there's still some stuff that's coming down the pipeline later that they've hinted at but not given any sort of explicit details about, that I've kind of, let's say, postulated about and cooked up like a generic, maybe this will be what it looks like, Vengeance Demon Hunter tier or talent tree. So let's just start with the tier set bonuses. First things first, they've changed the Blood Death Knight 10.2 two-piece to no longer be based on consuming bone shield charges. It is instead based on runic power, has a chance to cause your next Heart Strike to apply Ash and Decay, reducing damage dealt to you by 10% and increasing your damage dealt to afflicted targets by 20 for 8 seconds. So this still has the same problem that the old bonus did, where Heart Strike can hit up to 5 targets if you're in your Death and Decay. So it's pretty great in raid, it's pretty great in single target, pretty great in like small scale AoE. But if you're doing massive AoE, you have a 5 target cap on applying this 2-piece bonus, which is not ideal. The 4-piece bonus applies with the single target hit from, what is it called? I want to say, I'm completely blanking on a talent name that I used to really like. Soul Reaper, that's it. And then also all the damage hits from A-Bomb Limb. So I think that this tier set bonus is still pretty good. And this is really just a big quality of life improvement, because previously the Bone Shield charge requirement makes it so that if you're not actively tanking, it's a raid situation and it's a taunt swap, your tier set bonus just turns off until you've taunted the boss again. This sucks. Everybody hates this kind of thing, and I'm glad for it to go away. Now, there is one downside, and that downside is Tombstone. Tombstone is like the one silver lining when it comes to bonuses that are built around consuming Bone Shield charges. And it is what makes Blood DK so effective, with the way that their whole Dancing Rune weapon and Dancing Rune weapon cooldown reset effect functions. Like, Tombstone is really essential for making all of that come together as a cohesive whole. But having it as a requirement is fine, because you're going to be taking it anyway because you need it for the base class. But having that be the thing, the engine that makes the tier set bonus work again, just kind of sucks. So I am glad to see this change over to runic power. It means that it's going to function. You won't have quite the same burst potential that you would with hitting Tombstone or whatever. Fine. The on-demand proc from Tombstoning, I think it's totally fine to give that sort of silver lining up to get rid of the rain cloud that came from this right here, consuming a Bone Shield charge. Okay, now we can move over to the 2-piece Vengeance Demon Hunter tier set. And as you can see, there's like literally nothing written here that's changed. What's happened is there was an even weighting based on the number of targets that you had Sigil of Flames for your Sigil of Flames to flare up, shattering an additional soul fragment. So like, let's just say it's a 50% chance per tick. It's not, but let's just say that for the sake of ease of argument. That means every other tick on a single target, you would get a burst and an additional fragment. In 2 targets, you would have basically a 100% chance every time the tick happens, 2 50% chances every time a tick happens. 3 targets, you'd have 3 50% chances. On 4, you'd have 4. So they've made it so that it's a little bit weighted, so that it's not just absolutely insane in AoE. And this means that they can keep the tuning higher in single target to compensate. Now, I don't know that they've tuned that up, but that might happen since there are still some class changes coming down the line for Vengeance. I think this is a good change. Vengeance's problem in the past has always been that it's like really good in AoE situations, really effective in Mythic Plus, and then it'll kind of have, either it'll be way too strong in raid and single target situations, Castle Nathria, or it'll kind of suck in raid single target situations, pretty much all the rest of the history of the class. So this is the right design. They probably should have gotten this on the first pass, but they got it now, so it is what it is. The Druid tier set bonus was absolutely terrible. Garbanzo. And so here's the change that they've made. 20% of your damage and healing and blah, 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 while your Rage of the Sleeper is active. So you're still locked into Rage of the Sleeper, which is a great talent that you want to take anyways. Now you get 25% of the damage dealt as an absorbed shield while the thorns remain. And the thorns last for 45 seconds after Rage of the Sleeper. So previously it was a 10%, basically like a 10% ignore pain. It was very small. It only lasted 30 seconds. So it was very reasonable. If you weren't taking a ton of damage events, you had to be taking like lots and lots and lots and lots of hits that also did a lot of damage to be able to consume the whole thing, to be able to consume the whole absorb. With it going up to 25% damage reduction after your Rage of the Sleeper expires, that is a lot better. Coverage is always a good thing. Having more of it is always good. This is like not a sexy bonus, but it's fine. It's certainly fine now compared to where it was when it first came out, when it was just trash. Additionally, the 4-piece bonus has been changed from being 10% of the damage absorbed to 100% reflected back at the attacker. You know, this kind of has the same problem that the Blood DK tier set bonus used to, where you're relying on getting hit in order for it to do anything. And I don't love that. The first half of this, the extra 5 seconds on Rage of the Sleeper, pretty nice. I mean, Rage of the Sleeper is a great cooldown, and getting 15 seconds of uptime on it, and then 45 seconds of this shield, and damage reflection, and, you know, then it's a 45-second cooldown until it's back up. You don't exactly get full coverage out of just Rage of the Sleeper thanks to this tier set bonus, but that's sort of what they're going for, and then you can kind of patch in the gaps in between with either, like, big well-timed frenzied regens or bark skins or, you know, just whatever, like external cooldowns. I mean, I see what they're going for, and I think it's okay. I don't think it's amazing. I think people, certainly coming off of the heels of this current tier set bonus that is incredible, I think this is a little disappointing, just like from a design standpoint, but I think the numbers on it seem like they work out now, as opposed to being just awful before. Just terrible, terrible before. Okay, now we have the Brewmaster Monk 2-set bonus change, which causes you to heal for 50% of your fire damage dealt instead of all fire damage dealt. Now, I assume what they're doing here is they're making it so that, like, trinkets and that sort of thing won't trigger trinkets, weapon effects, so on. I tried testing this a lot. It was actually pretty difficult to tell. I think that weapon effects weren't functioning in terms of giving you a heal, but they could proc the 4-piece, and the 4-piece would deal Shadow Flame damage, and then you would heal from that. That may still be in. Ultimately, this just looks like a language parse change. But either way, this is a nothing change, and it seems like they're happy with Brewmaster, which makes me very happy because I think Brewmaster rocks going into the next tier. It does seem like Blizzard has chosen to balance the tanks mostly using tier set bonuses, and I'm okay with that, especially considering what they're doing with Brewmaster and Prot Warrior. Okay, the Prot Pally tier set bonus, the 2-piece bonus, has been redesigned in exactly the way I thought it should be. Judgment grants a stack of Sanctification, no longer increases your armor by 1%, a meaningless bonus. It now grants you 2% damage reduction, and it only goes up to 5 stacks instead of 10. Now, one thing that I got a piece of feedback and was able to test and find also is true is that you don't generate stacks of Sanctification while you have your empowered consecration from Sanctification down. So it does create, like, you know, a cooldown window after the Sanctification has ended. That's okay. Like, I mean, it means that you're, I guess, not consuming the Sanctification stacks while it's up, so you're actually getting that 10% damage reduction. Now, that bonus that you get from casting Judgment's actually good and matters, so you don't want to lose that bonus and start recharging up to get your consecration back up. You actually want to hang on to that bonus as long as you can. 10% damage reduction is quite substantial. So this is good. And cutting the ramp up in half from 10 stacks to 5 is just great. Now you're getting this proc if you're casting Judgment every 5 seconds, which I think is a pretty conservative number, but let's say you are, that's 25 seconds to ramp up into this, and then it lasts for 12, and then it's down for 25 and up for 12 and down for 25 and up for 12. It's okay. I think, you know, maybe I'm underestimating the speed with which you're getting it back up. Maybe it's more like every 4 seconds, in which case it would be 20, 12, 20, 12. That also would work. It's probably more available in single target than it is in AoE, which is kind of counterintuitive considering it's a consecration damage bonus, but it's okay. Additionally, they've doubled the damage value of the 4-piece, which was pretty underwhelming. I think doubling it was the right call here. So I think Prot Pally's in a lot better shape than it was before. I mean, just getting an average of like 6 to 8% damage reduction all the time is pretty good. It really goes nicely with the way that Pally has so many other positives going on. Obviously, the one thing that everybody wants is for Glyph of the Consecrator to come back from Warlords of Draenor. Just have Consecration, follow the Paladin around like rushing Holy Wind. It's not gonna happen. I want it to happen too. I would do unspeakable things to make it happen, and if it did, Paladin would rule. Everyone would love to play it, but at least for now, not gonna happen. So let's move on to Warrior, which has been nerfed and buffed massively. So first off, the 2-piece bonus has been changed to instantly consume your shield slam, or instantly consume your bleeds with shield slam when you trigger the proc. But instead of doing 100% of the remaining damage of the bleeds, it only does 40%. This is kind of a bummer, but on the other hand, me testing very poorly solo with no external buffs, no Wind Fury, no Bloodlust, no, I don't even think I had flasks on. I was doing like 15,000 DPS with the 2-piece bonus and a training dummy. Playing poorly, like not really using cooldowns, any of that stuff. So this is a really massive damage bonus, and losing half of it is like kind of acceptable. Like just to give a proportional level on like some numbers here, I would hit shield slam and it would hit for like 35,000 damage, and the fervid proc, that's the 2-piece proc, would hit for 85,000 damage. It was hitting for massively more than your shield slam, and it was proccing all the time, like literally 10 to 12 times a minute. So 10 to 12 times a minute, you're just getting basically like you'll shield slam and then also a shotgun will appear out of nowhere and blast the face off of the mob that you're hitting. It's probably better that they nerf that down instead of nerfing the proc rate, which I think is what they were going to do instead. I think that would have been the move, rather than having a tank just be able to drop like, you know, I'm doing 85k on a training dummy unbuffed in like kind of bad gear. So in full Mythic Bis and so on, you're just going to be dropping like 180k fervid procs every 5 seconds. That probably wasn't good for the health of the game, and I think it's okay that they've made this change. It does have one weird knock-on effect where, because of Thunderous Roar being a bleed, hitting Thunderous Roar and then immediately consuming it, you actually lose some damage, which is a bit weird, but we're going to get to why I think that's still how you're going to want to play with all the rest of the changes here. The other changes are all universally good. You reduce not the target's damage dealt to you, single target damage reduction, you reduce your damage taken, which means this rules in Mythic Plus now. You have this massive incentive to consume your bleeds with Shield Slam to get yourself a 10% damage reduction effect, and you can maintain this all of the time. With the 4-piece, it goes up from 10% to 14% at a minimum, or even 16%, depending on how many bleed effects you consume from your target. And thank God, maybe they took my feedback directly from the Wowhead article. Maybe there's just more likely just people agreeing on a thing because it's very obviously true. They've increased the cooldown reduction that this effect has on Thunderous Roar, which means we're just going to bust out a calculator here. You're getting 12 procs of this per minute, so you're getting what? Every 5 seconds, you're getting 3 seconds of cooldown reduction. So 8 divided by 5 means 1.6. So we're going to divide 60 by 1.6, and there you go. That means your average cooldown on Thunderous Roar is going to be about 38 seconds now. Previously, it was going to be about 51 or 52 seconds. So they just shaved about 12 seconds off the cooldown of Thunderous Roar, which owns, actually. And then also there's just the like fun aspects of this, you know, cooldown of Thunderclap being reset. That's pretty fun. Lot of damage reduction, you know, again, you're gonna basically be rolling an average of 14 to 16% damage reduction on you from all sources. Like This even applies to like environmental sources. You can go stand in fire and take 16% less damage from it if you've just popped all your bleeds off with this tier set bonus. That's pretty rad. Okay, now let's actually get into the class changes that have occurred, and let's try and make sure that we haven't scrolled back to a week ago. We have. Okay, here we are, an hour ago. Blood changes, just a tier set. Demon Hunter changes, quite substantial. We'll start with the developer's note. Demon Hunter talent updates will be starting to roll in as they become ready, starting with Havoc tree changes in this week's PTR build. In some cases, talents may be missing or marked as a work in progress, but there are enough changes to the Havoc tree and individual talents that we would like to get in players' hands to begin gathering feedback. Vengeance and class tree changes are coming soon. Okay, Spectral Sight cooldown, don't care. Fodder to the Flame Demon, now revealed by Spectral Sight, okay. Fodder to the Flame Demon now takes fatal damage from Eye Beam and Fell Devastation in addition to Throw Glaive. This is nice quality of life. Fodder to the Flame buff now granted immediately upon killing Demon instead of collecting Soul. I think this is generally a good quality of life change. It does mean you don't have to go pick up the Soul or more realistically, like immediately try to consume it with Spirit Bomb. There's also the possibility of like, maybe you would have actually wanted to let that soul sit for a bit. Like there's a lot of times where a Fodder to the Flame Demon will spawn as a pull is ending, and maybe you want to drag it with you to the next pull, or maybe you don't because it's keeping the healer in combat and they can't drink or something. Like we're talking about a Mythic Plus situation here, so you could instantly kill it with your glaive and then let the soul sit there until the next pull starts. That's this is pretty minor though. Metamorphosis cooldown reduced to 3 minutes, was 4. Darkness now has a 15% chance to avoid all damage from attack. Okay, this previously was 20%, but this is a nerf in raid. Gone from 15% or from 20% to 15%. But in Mythic Plus, the chance to avoid damage is increased by 100%, so it goes from 20% to 30. Pretty good change. And First of the Illidari has been removed. I couldn't even remember what this was. I thought it was Fist of the Illidari, which sounded like an Infernal Strike ability or talent. No, it's this talent that no one has ever used as Vengeance. Metamorphosis grants 10% verse, and its cooldown is reduced by a minute. Since they're reducing the base cooldown, you know, that's fine. They basically have just baked this in without the versatility, and I can live with that. All right, see, the only Vengeance change in here is the 2-piece bonus change. That's fine. Guardian Druid got a cap on its rage generation from Blood Frenzy, which, if we look at that, just to show off, it is this talent right here. Thrash generates 2 rage each time it deals damage. I haven't logged in and checked this to see what the cap is, but reasonably it would be 5, 6, or 8. That's usually where they cap it. So you're going to get 10, 12, or maybe 16 rage every tick of Thrash. That's like every 2 seconds, and then, you know, reduced by haste. This isn't like a huge change. This is mainly targeted at edge cases, so we're talking about people in Mythic Plus, super high level Mythic Plus pushing, tanking like 15, 20 mobs at a time and getting 40 rage per second back from Blood Frenzy and being able to hit Iron Fur every single second while also using raise and so on. I understand why they're doing this nerf. It is what it is. I don't love it. I actually like those situations where you're able to be a degenerate, but you know, it's fine. Monk changes. Wow. Okay, the statue that everybody definitely, I've never keybound, it got a buff. That's great. Paladin changes are just the tier set bonus as well. And then here we have the warrior changes, which are baffling, but probably for the best. Rallying Cry now increases current and maximum health by 10%, was 15%. So we'll also show off the talent that they're referencing here. Inspiring Presence has been removed, so Rallying Cry is going to go from 15% health for 10 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown down to 10% health for 10 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown, and this talent right here, the 3 seconds of added duration and 5% extra max health, is just gone. So Rallying Cry has basically been cut in half in terms of value. It's not 20% more max health, it's 10. It lasts for 10 seconds, not 13. It's getting gutted. This is maybe for the best. It definitely is not great for Arms or Fury Warrior. It's not good for Prot either. But Rallying Cry has become a crutch in raids for every high-level raiding guild. So I see what they're trying to do here. I wouldn't have done this. I could see taking out Inspiring Presence, but also nerfing the baseline Rallying Cry. I don't think it's great. I think it just kind of makes Warrior a weaker class in general, but you know, whatever, I guess. Again, as always, they make the game, I just play it. So yeah, this probably knocks Warrior down quite a bit in terms of like relative tank rankings, but these tier set bonuses are, whoo, they're insane. Like, yes, there's a big single target damage reduction by not being able to just like shotgun blast tanks or single targets in the face with every shield slam cast. But the Thunderous Roar cooldown reduction actually is pretty meaningful in multi-target situations. The damage taken reduction is very significant in AoE situations. So I think Prot Warrior is on the rise in Mythic Plus in the next season. I think they are very much well on their way to being one of the top tanks in the next season. I would not be surprised by that at all, with the like continuing fall of Druid, I would argue maybe fall of Paladin, but Paladin's always good. That class could basically do nothing and Avenger Shield's gonna carry it in Mythic Plus anyway. And the uncertain state of Vengeance Demon Hunter. Vengeance could be great, could be terrible. And so here I have a hypothetical talent tree that I want to close on for Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now they've said that they're redesigning the class tree, so I haven't put any points in here because we don't know what it's going to look like. This is my guess as to a hypothetical right-hand tree, spec tree, that they've also said they're going to be throwing some revamps into. This would be for Mythic Plus. So in Mythic Plus, you still want Spirit Bomb, you still want Fracture, you got to take it to get the Spirit Bomb anyway. You want Calcified Spikes, it's pretty nice. Where I've kind of deviated from things as they currently exist is I've taken Cycle of Binding, I've taken Meteoric Strikes, and I've taken Elysian Decree, and I haven't bothered with Soul Carver. This is all non-standard, all weird stuff. Here's why I've done it. I am hoping and assuming and thinking, because they have mentioned already that they want to do something in the left-hand tree and with Vengeance Demon Hunter to make it a more sigil-based playstyle. In my mind, what that means is that they're going to find a way to bring back the concept that used to exist as talents where casting Infernal Strike also casts Sigil of Flames. If they do that, if they have some way where Sigil of Flames and Infernal Strike casting are like merged together again, and you're getting cooldown reduction on Infernal Strike, that's important. So that you can have 100% uptime on Sigil of Flames, like quite a bit over 100% uptime on Sigil of Flames, actually, like 150% or something, then Cycle of Binding becomes incredibly valuable. This causes a knock-on effect where all of your other sigils are getting tons of cooldown reduction. You might even literally be interested in coming over and getting Sigil of Chains, even just as like more CC for some Mythic Plus situations. You do have to give up some sort of defense to get that though, like probably Painbringer or I mean, Painbringer makes the most sense as what you'd have to give up, I think. I don't really want to give up Fiery Demise and Burning Alive and Down in Flames in a Mythic Plus situation. Obviously, you're not going to have the whole Fiery Brand tier set bonus in the next tier. So this is highly experimental. They may not do any of what I'm expecting and thinking when it comes to giving you a way to automate casting Sigil of Flame by using Infernal Strike. If that doesn't happen, then none of this that I've cut, this is all just like scribblings on the wall of a cave by a madman. But if that does happen, then I think that there is like a real possibility that you're running Sigil of Binding or Cycle of Binding, Meteoric Strikes, and then you would be running Elysian Decree because you could be cutting that cooldown down to like 30 seconds maybe. And you would also be cutting the cooldown of Sigil of Silence way down. You'd be cutting the cooldown of Sigil of Misery way down. So you'd probably run everything Sigil oriented that you possibly could. And I think there's something very interesting there. Lot of CC, pretty tanky. Probably still really good AoE damage thanks to Elysian Decree, and I think that's pretty appealing. It harkens back, if it exists, which it may not. It harkens back to one of my favorite playstyles that Vengeance Demon Hunter ever had, and that was the BFA, about middle of the expansion playstyle. Just a really, really fun time to be a Demon Hunter. You were leaping all the time. You were doing sick amounts of AoE damage, and it was pretty fun. You were really tanky, did a lot of damage. A lot of healing. I mean, what more could you want? All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. I gotta say, I think all the tanks are in pretty good shape here. I said earlier that I think Blizzard is using tier set bonus as a way to balance the tanks. I don't think that's a unique concept. Like, I don't think I'm the only person to have that idea. but it definitely seems to be the case, and I'm okay with it. I think they're doing a pretty good job. I think all the tanks are in pretty good shape, and I'm really just looking forward to what the Vengeance Demon Hunter changes are, and then we'll go from there. All right, that is it. Thanks for watching. Bye.